All right, so first step is, okay, you've got the collar. It's got a single layer binding and a double layer binding, okay? So the single layer binding is where you're gonna start, and it's gonna go on the inside of the vest. The inside is the stretchy mesh side.
Okay.
The outside is the nylon shell, okay? So this is longer on purpose. It needs to extend past the edge of the vest. Feel free to use pins if that helps you to line it up. It probably will have to stretch a little bit to fit on that neck edge. And then one of the tricks I found that is the most helpful, because you're sewing a stretchy fabric to a not stretchy fabric. Put the stretchy part next to your feed dogs. And then your presser foot doesn't pull it out of kilter. You can do more pins than that if you want. I just marked the centers and the ends. Okay, now I'm gonna sew from this side where it's got a serge stitch along this edge, and I'm gonna kind of use that as my guide. I wanna for sure be past the serge stitching.
I'm like in your face, I'm like.
You're fine, you're fine. Make sure you can see, come around if you wanna see if this is something you wanna tackle. Long stitch length, all the way long. We've got heavy duty thread, and sewing through foam, it's not going to feed through your machine as fast as normal fabric, so it will actually end up a medium stitch length. But between the heavy thread and the other thing the long stitch length will do for you is, if you have to undo it, it'll be much more forgiving. This mesh fabric, it gets holes in it if the stitches are too close. So just go long and it'll be perfect, okay? So I'm going to use this serging as my guide, and I'm going to try to sew about 1/8 of an inch to the side of the serging to make sure it's all enclosed. So back stitch right there. Okay. Okay. All right. Another trick that I use on almost everything I do on these vests is I'll put a little bit of tension behind and in front, but you have to put equal tension so that you don't break your needle. We're sewing a straight edge to a round edge, so it's a little tricky. But by putting tension on it, I can control it better. And it helps the stretchy part ease in on the bottom. Okay, I'm just gonna check and make sure I'm not sewing anything underneath that I don't want to sew. Okay, this is black on black, so it's gonna be hard to see, but can you see how that stitching is over inside the serging? That's where you want it. So I would say for your seam allowance question, not more than 1/2 inch, because it has to be able to still reach to attach on the other side.
So are you actually sewing over the foam there?
I am, yes. I'm sewing through the foam. Something else that we've told our volunteers is don't worry too much about getting it absolutely perfect, because a lot of these things, it's not going to make a difference on how warm it keeps someone. So if you get a little pucker in there or something's not quite right, it's probably fine. All right, so now the next step is going to be the outside part of the binding, which is this folded over one. If you want to pin it, you can to get it even. This just folds over. If you've done quilt bindings, this is like a quilt binding. So this folded edge is just going to go over the top of what you just sewed, and you sew an edge stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of that fold, and that encloses the whole neck joint. So once again, this is my favorite trick, is just to use tension in front and behind.
So basically you just line that up with the inside of your foot.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, can you see that one?
Yeah.
Just on the edge there. So that's gonna go all the way around. Line up with that edge. Okay, now you can see I kind of went a little crooked right there. That's not something I would undo. It doesn't affect the performance of the vest, so I would leave it. Now this little tail that you've got is just going to wrap around to the front and cover that edge to finish it off. So it finishes off nice and clean on the inside. And I'm just going to do a straight stitch over that edge. Like that. And then trim it off right next to your stitching. Okay. When it's finished off with the zipper, all that edge will be underneath the zipper. So that finishes it off. Nice and clean on the inside. And then same thing on the other end. Right there. Okay. All right.